Section 6.5 talks all about rhombi and squares. This is going to take our parallelogram and rectangle discussions and take it just a step further with these two new shapes. So, properties of a rhombus. A rhombus, most of the time when asked, oh, what's a rhombus, someone says a tilted square. And that's pretty accurate. It's a tilted square, but it has special properties of its own. Those being that all four sides are congruent. So if rhombus, then four congruent sides. And if I were to draw in the diagonals form a right angle. If rhombus, diagonals are perpendicular. Those are two properties that you need to add to your notes. We're going to use those throughout the rest of the unit. So, if angle 1 is 35, find all the other angles. Because the diagonals form a right angle, I know that all of these, let me switch colors. I know all of these are 90. And 90 and 90. These diagonals, because they're perpendicular, they're also angle bisectors. So this is 35. Across the shape, because it's a parallelogram, those angles are congruent, so these are also 35. Now we're just missing 4, 5, 6, and 7. They're all going to be the same number. And let's take a look at just one triangle. H, I don't know what this middle point is, let's say HXR. This triangle has 180 degrees. 90 of them here, 35 here, the other 55 over there. So if 4 is 55, so is 5, so is 6, and so is 7. Now if RH is 7x, and HO is 33 minus 4x, I want to find the perimeter. So in order to find the perimeter, I have to find x. Once I find x, I have to find a side length. Then I can find the perimeter. So because it's a rhombus, all the sides are equal, which means I can take any of them and set them equal to each other. Add 4x over, you get x is 3. When I plug that back in here, RH is 21. Since one side is 21, the perimeter is 4 times 21, or 84. Now let's take a look at squares. What do we know about a square? A square is a regular quadrilateral. It's regular because all the sides are congruent, all the angles are congruent, and in fact those angles are right angles. But the properties of a square are, this is going to sound funny to write, all the properties. And they're all the properties of parallelograms, rectangles, and rhombi. So all of the properties that we've done in section 6.2 through 6.4 and earlier in this video are all properties of a square. It has every single property. All the diagonals are congruent. They bisect each other. They are perpendicular. The opposite angles are congruent. The opposite sides are parallel. The opposite sides are congruent, and so on. All of those properties apply. So let's try answering sometimes, always, or never. Try all 5 of these first, and then we'll check. So a quadrilateral is a square. Well, a quadrilateral means it has 4 sides. Squares have 4 sides, but they're not always a square, so it's going to be sometimes. A square is a rectangle. So what you have to do to answer this, does a square have 4 right angles like a rectangle? Yes. Does a square have diagonals that are congruent? Yes. So that's always. A rhombus is a parallelogram. Same idea. Does a rhombus have all the properties of a parallelogram? And it does. a rhombus is a four-sided figure. And is a parallelogram a square? Same idea as this top one. Is a quadrilateral a square? We're going to go with sometimes. Now you've seen this chart. We're going to fill it in all the way. We're actually going to draw a box down here and make a conclusion, because we know here tells us parallel or not parallelogram. Here tells us rectangle or not a rectangle. Here's going to tell us rhombus or not a rhombus. If all of them are true, our conclusion is a square. Otherwise, our conclusion might be something different. So let's plot these points. B is 1, 3. E is 7, negative 3. 1, negative 9 is F. And negative 5, negative 3 is G. So let me draw this in. Right there and right there. So, find the slopes of all of them. I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 over 6 gives me a slope of 1. Down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1 over 1, but negative. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And as you would expect, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6 as well. So opposite sides are parallel. Means that's the parallelogram. Consecutive sides, 1 and negative 1, are opposite reciprocals, meaning this is a rectangle. Now we need to check our diagonals. When I find the slopes of our diagonals, one of them, although it doesn't look like it the way I drew it, horizontal, slope is 0. And then the other one's straight up and down, meaning the slope is undefined. 1 over 0, oops, let's redo that. 0 over 1 and 1 over 0 are opposite reciprocals, so this is a rhombus. And because it's all three of these, our final conclusion tells us that it's a square.